And then so you go to 2017 and then sign with HRC and just completely destroy everybody at the first 2 rounds of Supercross.
Yeah, that was so I came over and at first, actually, it's kind of funny we talk about it now. So the first bike that I got from Honda was the Trace bike, but it was the old one, the 2016, right? So I just come off of 16, just, really good year, really got it going in Supercross, smashed outdoors, just basically on top of my game, right? Like I loved my motorcycle. I knew I had so much confidence in my bike. Well, then you switch teams and I got Trey's bike. It was 2016. I ride the bike. I come in and I'm like, Peyton, I hope that the new bike's better than this. Just because like way different setup than what I like. His bike was super dead on the rear and the forks were stiff. The bike was so fast. I'm like, dude, how do you ride this, Trey? We laugh about it now, but because everybody, you like I said, you can have 2 Hondas there or 2 Suzukis. You can ride my setup and then somebody else's setup and they will feel way different. You know what I mean? And we'd like different style bikes. And yeah, it just was like, I'm like, man, I don't know if I can win on this thing. It was just way different.
God, that's got to be the worst feeling.
Yeah, it's a long time ago now, right? Like it's hard to remember exactly, but I remember just, and I was talking to Shorty at that point because he was our test rider.
And you guys were always close.
We were always close, and he did a bunch of the production testing and whatnot. And he's like, don't worry, the new bike's better, I promise you. So it was nice getting some reassurance. And then sure enough, like I said, the 2017 Honda, the new one that came out, there was something really right on that bike. I love that thing. And I had electric start on my bike, until the crash. And then down the road in 2018, we actually went, that's when the bike was actually stock with electric start. And we actually put a Kickstarter back on for Butts Creek.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it handled better.
Handled better with a Kickstarter.
Yeah, like I think the electric start, I think they have a little motor sitting, right? So when you start it up and it's spinning, so when that weight sits high in the bike, your center of gravity weight changes, and then you get a lot of like teeter-tottering, right? Diving in the front, squatting in the rear. So and something like that, you put a little bit of weight, it makes a massive difference. It all depends on where it sits in the motorcycle.
It's wild that you can feel that.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you could too, honestly. Like if we were to give you four laps, let's say you do a warm-up, whatever, you give you 4 laps and be like, hey, 2 laps, you're gonna take the bike out, feel how heavy it is. Do you feel it in the air? Does it turn worse? Does it pull you out? Like, does it pull you right as you're turning left? And then you go put the Kickstarter on. Like, you will feel, if you really hone in on yourself, and you guys got to pick out a few spots throughout the track. And how easy is it for you to complete that turn compared to what you had before? And that's how you make your decision on whether it's better or not. So I believe that if maybe with the right guidance, you know what I mean? I think
if you really like know what you're looking for.
Yeah, like
I'm surprised the things that I can tell and can't tell. Like I did a test. Kiefer had a 350, like a modded 350, and then a stock 450. And he's like, you come and we'll just like test. We'll do a lap time or whatever. And I got off the 450. I rode both bikes, and he's like, "How was it?" And I was like, "Dude, the fucking handlebars, like those handlebars feel way shorter." And he just laughed. He's like, "Yeah, they're a millimeter shorter."
1 mil.
And it fully was like I couldn't get my head around riding the bike. But, like I know I obviously you can feel something like that, but some stuff I'm like, don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like we've invested our entire life into this thing.
For sure.
So there's definitely something to be said that if you don't, yes, you're going to have a harder time telling what you like and what you don't like and what the difference is. But like for a general idea or something big like that, I think it's
just surprising that is a big change. You wouldn't think that motor would make, or like the electric start motor would make that big a difference.
But honestly, it's with anything on not even cars, right? There's a million moving parts. So if you change something here, it's going to affect the leverage on here. Like everything changes with the tiniest change. So, and some are more drastic at your feel, right? And some are just like, it's like, and sometimes you have to go back and forth. Actually, most of the time you have to go back and forth because you can have your base, you try something and you're like, hey, I don't know. It wasn't that much of a difference. You go back. That's when you really feel the difference. So I go back and forth a lot. Like I don't just base everything off of my very, very first thought. You know what I mean? Like you have to sometimes go back and forth to really determine if it's the right way to go. Yeah.
So you do those first couple rounds. Where are you at in 2017? Like that had to be maybe like the peak or like some of the best that you'd ever felt.
Obviously looking back now, you can say cocky, But I don't know. I had so much confidence. First off, also because I didn't have like any EBV problems, you know what I mean? Like I just was young, I felt healthy, I felt strong, and it was a lot more the training side of things. I always had to be careful in certain areas, but it was a lot more forgiving, you know? It wasn't I didn't walk such a fine line of like overtraining, undertraining, or whatever. So I just felt a lot more consistent.
Yeah.
And then with that, you know, you build your platform and it goes higher and your level goes higher. And at that point, I was just at my absolute peak. Like, new team, I did end up liking the bike, and I was so strong, so fit, and I could just, there was nothing in my head that told me that I can't do this or anything, or nor a doubt, honestly.
That would have been a crazy place to be in. And just to be winning that easily. Like, I remember just thinking, like, dude, he might just win every race.
Yeah, and it's definitely also a lot of pressure, but at that point, like, when I have no doubt in my mind, I'm strong, I'm fit, like I love my bike. It's almost, for me, I'm thinking, I'm like, I can't do it. You know, you can grenade yourself, but in general, like when it is just about like crossing off the boxes, I'm fit, I'm strong, I like my bike. There's nothing else that I could have done to make me better, honestly. Yeah. So at that point, I was like, I did everything I can. And I also know my capabilities of how well I can ride, right? And then, that was just a recipe for like, I'm going to annihilate these guys.
And then that crash happens, that has to be like, that's the rock bottom you were talking about before?
Yes and no.
Really?
No, there's just different and other things down the road, you know what I mean?
Is that with the sickness?
Yeah, and we can get to that in just a second. But right then and there, I crashed, and I honestly, now it's I didn't even hit my head. So it was a gnarly crash, right? But literally the only thing that I messed up, the only thing, is my elbow and arm, but like nothing on the head. Like I didn't hit my head. I wasn't knocked out. I had no concussion, like nothing. And like I plowed into that, jump from being really high, and actually catapulted forward. So like the speed of everything, like it's just gnarly that nothing else happened. And right then and there, I laid there. I didn't even feel like I was laying there actually for a long time. I don't remember it like being that long, but I think my arm was so fragile that like I could barely move. Seriously, like I could barely, because everything was so wobbly and, compounded, and I didn't really see it right then and there, but I could, every little bit of movement that I made just was like insane pain, you know what I mean? And then, right when I was on the ground right there, I felt a little bit empty, I'm like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
And I definitely knew that my arm was broken. Like not that bad, but I'm like, oh fuck, my arm hurts, like pretty bad. And then the crazy part was like they cart me off, and I'm sitting on the back of the ambulance, and the guy, the not the doctor, but the nurse, the ambulance guy, whatever, he was there and like trying to take care of me, and he goes from one side to another, and his jacket was open, and my arm, like I'm kind of like holding my arm like this, and his jacket flops open and like full on rips my fingers and like rips, my whole arm, and I remember fucking lost it on him. And then everything after that is a blur, honestly. They gave me some kind of crazy drug because they were trying to pop my elbow back in, but I don't think it would go or whatever, and it was hurting like crazy, and they gave me something, and it felt like I was dead. Or something. Yeah, I don't know. It felt like I was dead, but I wasn't. It was wild. Like I had my eyes open. I could hear. I don't remember if I could really see, but it was this odd, craziest thing because you didn't really feel anything. You couldn't do anything, but I could hear them in a sense. It was fucking crazy.
It's probably ketamine, bro.
Maybe, yeah. I've no clue, but it was wild. Like I was out, but there, but not really. It was the oddest thing.
Fuck, dude. When you look back, what went wrong in that crash, you think?
Really, it was just getting off the tabletop, and my it obviously kind of like rebounded or kicked me up. It was probably gullied out a little bit,
Yeah.
But then the hardest part was I think my shock bottomed out and it ripped my heels off on the takeoff. That's why I ended up Supermaning. Like I didn't jump off that way, So as it was bucking me forward and I'm Supermaning, like I have no grip on the bike. I can't like try to correct it or do anything to do something different or figure out in the split second how I can land with the least amount of damage. So then it ripped my heels off and I just flew over the bars, and it was really just like, when you dive off of something really high into the water and you're kind of just waiting and you brace on impact to like feel the pain or like kind of like stiffen up, you know what I mean? And that's exactly what I did. Like as soon as right before impact, I just tried to like absorb as much as I could. And I don't know, maybe those little differences I mean, it's not like I can do much because I'm flying overhead, you know, ass over tea kettle. But like that little bit, I don't know. I just try to absorb as much as I possibly could.
It is crazy you didn't get more hurt.
I agree. I agree.
Like, it just could have gone so much. I mean, it was obviously like crazy, crazy bad. But dude, that could have just been.
It could have been a lot more than an arm.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And then so going through that, you go straight to Vail. You're with Courtney at this time, right? So
I'm with Courtney and Steve, my agent, Astafin.
Yeah.
I got taken to Irvine first.
Oh, right.
So I got taken to Irvine, and they kind of made it seem like it's not that big of a deal, whatever. We have the plastic surgeon here, whatever. We'll get you fixed up, and you'll be on your way type thing. Well, my surgery kept getting like pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, and it was the next day, the next morning. I must have slept a little bit. I vaguely remember, and actually one time in Vail, there's like, I was there for 3.5 weeks, and I like hardly remember. Like there's little bits and pieces, but I must have been pumped up with stuff. But anyways, so I was in Irvine, and then it kept getting pushed back, and Steve was like, no, like we need to go to a specialist. And I think he was on a bunch of calls, and we ended up just hiring a private jet because I could not fly commercial, and we had to get there as soon as possible. So we flew from, I believe, Orange County, probably, up to Vail. And I remember being in the plane, and it was the gnarliest pain ever because, you know, anytime you have an injury, you go in the plane, what does it do? Swells up even more. Hurts like fuck. Like I was miserable. I remember like trying to sleep and like constantly waking up, like, and it was so painful where you're like constantly moving, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know what to do. And like, there's nothing I could do but wait.
Yeah.
We got there and
it's just unbearable.
It really is unbearable. Like it was fucking gnarly, you know, now that I think back. And, then once I got there, I mean, I got taken into surgery right away. And,
so what was the complications where it was, you were there for 3 weeks?
So I had a compounded radius on my wrist. I had a compounded ulna, which is the bone on the outside of the wrist.
Yeah.
And then my radial head on my elbow was completely sheared off. Like it was gone pretty much. And then my elbow was dislocated. My wrist was dislocated. And then I ended up getting compartment syndrome. And what happens with that, I'm sure you know, like your muscle swells up so bad, it cuts off the blood supply. And once it's for too long and the muscle starts dying, you're not bringing the muscle back. Like once the muscle is dead, it's done. And so I got into surgery, got out, and Dr. Viola came in and he's like, oh boy, you know, like you did a number on your arm. He said that it was almost too late. I don't know what that means. I do know what it means, but he was like, dude, we had to get you in there if you want to keep your arm, you know? And at that point, my arm was wide open. Like I had an external fixator in, you know, my arm's so swollen that after they cut it, like they can't get it back close, right? So day after day, I had, I had surgery, and then it's probably 1 day off or something like that. And I kept getting, you know, probably surgeries like maybe eight days, almost in a row. I think one day break or something like that, right? So I ended up having 8 surgeries in the first bit that I was there. And yeah, it just was crazy. I was pumped, and I honestly, I wasn't so much pain. I was complaining to the nurses about it, and they're like, "Dude, you don't push the Dilaudid enough, you know." And I'm like, "Dude, I feel like I'm using a lot of drugs right now." And they're like, "No, you're not nowhere even close to what people normally take." I don't really want to be close to that, but at that point, I said, "Fuck it," and I was like pushing it. And you just start like you get a little bit of relief, and it's like the best thing you've ever felt. You know what I mean? Just get a little break from the brutal pain, like day in, day out, and then, you know, they keep digging in there. Like it just felt gnarly, you know what I mean? It was brutal. And though it's probably a good thing I didn't remember much. In the beginning, Shorty was there as well. I got so many messages and stuff.
The whole industry was like hurting for you. At that time,
I've heard.
You know?
And honestly, I was way out of the loop. Like I actually pretty secluded myself for a while from the sport in general.
What was that? Just because of just it, like it hurt, like just to be in that or knowing what happened?
I don't know. First off, I didn't even know if I was going to be able to race again, right? It was a hard pill to swallow. I was so far away from everything. And
from the top.
Yeah.
From the very top too.
And then I think it was more so maybe after the hospital stay that I secluded myself, because right then and there I was worried about other stuff than Instagram. And just was a brutal time. And what else was there? what did we do? Oh no, there was so my wife's family was in town. They were all there, right? Like trying to support and everything. So that was really nice. And they were
They're
all
good
up there.
people too.
Yeah, very good people. And they ended up all going out to dinner like later that night. And I was pumped up of drugs, right? I'm trying to escape the hospital. Like I take my freaking little wheel card with my IV drip and everything.
No.
Freaking bare ass showing in my gowns or whatever. And I'm freaking walking, like I'm talking to Cord. She's like, I'm coming, you know, you're whacked out of your mind, right? But so I ended up starting to walk, and Greg, Court's dad, I think he came to the hospital or something like to keep me in there and whatnot. But I was full on, like I was out of there. I'm like, I'm going to dinner.
No way, bro. That's so external fixator, just like walking with a cage on your arm.
Dude, it was gnarly. Yeah, and I remember freaking sitting on the toilet for the first time. Shorty was there. Like it was just a fucking mess the whole time. You know what I mean? Like I was a mess. Not emotionally, but just like, you know, I needed help wherever I could. I mean, I had my arm with the bandages and everything. I swear to you, that thing was 50 fucking pounds. Like showering with the freaking arm up in the air. I don't even know if I showered in the beginning. It was all wiping down, you know, as much as you could until, you know, I was a little bit more stable and I could actually like kind of move around and whatnot. It just was a gnarly time, dude. And no end in sight, you know?
Yeah, true way. Like you're in this for a fucking minute.
Yeah.
God.
Nope. Yep, in this for a minute. So then the 3.5 weeks go by, and we're ready to fly back to Florida for the first time in forever. And the last day, or maybe the second to last day, they did a little surgery on my leg. They took a little bone graft out of there, right, and put it into, I forgot what they used it for. If it was my wrist or whatever, I don't even know. Not a big deal. Like it's just a small
Routine
surgery.
shit.
Shouldn't be that bad, dude. My leg was hurting. I couldn't even like, it was fucking miserable. Like, and the scar is like this big right now, right? But they're like, oh, it's not a big deal. We just got to take some bone. A day or so, you'll be back. Dude, I was hurting. I could not walk. I was in a freaking wheelchair going down in the airport and stuff. Like
your body's just over you,
I'm
bro.
so like beyond, like exhausted from everything, right? Like pain threshold, like everything. I was fucking over it.
Oh, think about like, dude, if that shit happens 100 years ago, you're dead.
Yeah, no kidding. You definitely don't have a freaking arm anymore.
Yeah, it's not that you're racing again, not that you're going to keep your arm. You're dead.
Yeah.
It's over.
Nuts.
Your body cannot sustain that kind of injury 100 years ago.
So then on the way back, we're landing whatever. Sure enough, I get so sick, like beyond sick. I was already at the rock bottom. It's actually crazy. So right now, I'm probably about 163 pounds, anywhere between 160 to 165, right? I left the hospital at 140, and I don't have like an ounce of fat on me right now.
Right
you know
now.
what I mean? Yeah. So I left there being 20 pounds lighter than I am right now, 20 to 25 pounds lighter. And I got sick, and it just was like, I thought I was dying just because like this thing's filleted open, right? Like my arm was throbbing so bad. I had a fever. Like I could not move. It was a brutal time. Yeah, it was gnarly. And so during that time, once I'm home, I'm like, man, I don't want anything to do with the sport. Like I'm not watching the races. No, nothing. It was actually pretty cool because my mom and dad finally came over.
Yeah.
Probably got to be hard as a parent, be on the other side of the world. You know, your kid just got really badly hurt.
On live TV.
Yeah, exactly. And so they came over, and it was actually pretty sweet. Like, they haven't been together for a long time. They were never married back in the day, but they've been separated for a long time. But they were cool with each other. But this was probably the first time in many years that my parents were over, and we were a normal family.
Yeah.
It wasn't about racing. It just wasn't about racing. We were so far out, and we were just living from day to day. We were going out on the boat. We had a little puppy, Rio, right? Like our French bulldog. We just had her recently for like 2 months or something like that. And yeah, it just was like we had dinner, we had breakfast. It was just normal shit that we did. And that hasn't happened in ages, you know, because I was going to the US and there's just so much shit going on, and we were always racing. So there was just no time for a normal life, you know? And then I was with Courtney too. Like I don't, at that age, like I don't want to be around my parents every single day. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it's just, we were on different planets, honestly. And then that, there was, I guess, a positive thing to take out of like the first stages of this.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.